Before we could build West Watkins Reservoir, we had to do a 5-year study of the watershed program. And we did that very thing, was to monitor both point source and non-point source pollutants. In other words, point source is a factory that they know is distributing their byproduct into the rivers or what have you. And the non-point source is other sources of pollution like cattle and what have you. In that 5-year study, one time we found an unacceptable level of pollutants in North Deer Creek. And when we investigated it further, we found out that there was a septic tank service guy that was dumping the pump outs from the septic tanks on his farm ground in order to improve the nutrients for his pasture grass. But it was running off into North Deer Creek and was therefore we found the high level of fecal coli, and we were able to shut him down. And so we monitored the watershed for 5 years prior and know of no potential pollutants in that watershed area. That just applies to North Deer Creek watershed, which, by the way, is the largest watershed in the state of Oklahoma, except for the rivers. On a stream bed, it's the largest, 39,000 acres. That's a big watershed, and so the potential for water is really pretty great to serve and keep West Watkins full. But as far as the pollutants is concerned, I think we have the Conservation Commission. That's one of their jobs, is to monitor point source and non-point source pollutants. Then, of course, you've got the Corporation Commission. When you have wells that are being drilled, they have guidelines. And then the Water Resources Board also has guidelines. So Water Resources Board, they have to apply for a permit to drill a well. And the Corporation Commission has to sign off on it. And then the Conservation Commission monitors what they've signed off on. So it's a pretty good check and balance system, but it could still happen. The pollutants could still happen. I don't think, like you've got up in Arkansas, that was there before they got their regulations in place. And now they're trying to correct it. Right now I'm not very anxious about it because I know that West Watkins is full and running over. The Twin Lakes is full. And so I think probably going into the winter months and into next summer, we don't have anything to worry about. Long range, I don't know, and I don't think anybody else knows. It's hard to predict, though we have the rain, the rainfall totals. Nobody can predict when we're going to have a drought, and the Geological Service, USGS, they do a pretty good job, but even they admit they're guessing a little bit. So, but right now I don't have any anxiety. What I do have is the new guidelines that are being brought into place as a result of the Safe Drinking Water Act, and the Department of Environmental Quality enforcing these is getting good, safe, potable water at an affordable cost. And as they bring these restrictions in or these guidelines in, the cost has got to go up. And so we need to, first of all, I went to Washington. Senator Inhofe got me an appointment with the Environment and Public Works Director. And my only purpose in going was we couldn't use West Watkins Reservoir at that time because of the dissolved organics in the water. And the dissolved organics were there as a result of the timber we left standing for fisheries and wildlife. I mean, it's kind of a vicious circle here. In order to get the maximum amount of money and make this an affordable project, we accepted some wildlife funds too. But when you accept federal money, you accept their guidelines. So they said, you take the timber out here and make it safe for skiing and water sports. You leave the timber standing here for fisheries and wildlife, migratory birds and what have you. As a result of leaving that timber there and the decaying organics, the level of organics in the water was unacceptable by today's standards. You and I both know that when they built the Toka Reservoir, Lake Texoma, Lake Eufaula, they left the timber in it. But those guidelines weren't in place, so we were using it for drinking water and nobody cared. But the new guidelines is what causes these concerns. And I'm not saying they're bad. They're looking out after our well-being. But at the same time, they cause an increase in money and cost. And the technology was not developed. When United States Congress passed these Safe Drinking Water Act and so forth, they didn't take into consideration that the technology to comply with these new laws wasn't in place. The technology wasn't there, and the technology that is there is too expensive to make water where it's affordable like it had been. And we're going to do it. I mean, EPA is going to make us comply, and if we don't, they're going to fine us every day. My point has always been that we know these things. We know that it's going to cost more to deliver potable water. We know that everything, there's no more grant monies in Washington. That's all dried up. So if you're going to replace infrastructure or put in new distribution system, you're going to have to use today's numbers with no outside help, and it's just going to be more expensive. It's just going to cost more. So the planners have got to figure that in their planning. I think so, and there's probably the best example of that is Sardis Reservoir, and the dependable yield of Sardis Reservoir, I'm told, is about 120 million gallons a day. In Shawnee, we use about 4 million gallons a day on an annual basis, 4 to 5 million gallons a day. So that could take care of 5 or 6 communities the same size as Shawnee. But it's not available because there's no conveyance system to get it here. And the citizens justifiably down there don't want it coming here. But I think if we put together an economic package that would benefit those people both from an economic standpoint and let them serve on governing boards that would say how this happens, I really believe that those people in Clayton and Sardis area would rather that water come to central Oklahoma than going to Texas. But we've got to put together a package that will benefit them and make them want that to happen instead of fighting it.
So you think water will basically become a commodity?
Yes.
Sometime in the future?
Yes. And if you don't believe that, you just look at what Boone Pickens is doing right now. He's buying up all the water rights in western Oklahoma. He's more into water right now than he is into oil. And he's a smart man. He knows what he's doing.